I've explained to you in another video exactly what Artisan, the water mixable oil colour is and how the range works. What I'd like to do now is just show you the benefits of using Artisan thinner over water whilst you're painting. Using water during your painting process with Artisan is perfectly fine. That's one of the big bonuses of the paint. However, using the thinner, you'll find that you'll get a much better performance out of colour. Let me show you this in action on the paper here. So what I'm going to do is squeeze out 2 blobs of the Artisan permanent rose side by side like so. For the first blob we're going to thin this with water, and for the second blob I'm going to thin that with Artisan thinner. First of all, I'm going to thin this with some water. So this is some water introduced here. If I start to thin this with a knife, you can see I'm actually creating an emulsion with the water and the oil colour. Now this is lightened in hue compared to the neat colour out of the tube, and it performs well. It's nice to use. It feels like an oil colour that's been thinned still. However, this lightness in hue will go back to the original colour as the water evaporates out the film, so it's not a permanent change in colour. There'll be a colour shift as that dries. If I now introduce some of the thinner, straight away I can feel that this has a much more oily consistency to it. It feels more like a terps. If you paint currently in oil colour and use terps, this instantly feels like you're using a terps rather than a thin watery consistency. You can see it breaks down nicely and there's no shift in hue at all. This hasn't lightened as I've used the thinner. So working this through with a brush, you can see that the Artisan that's been thinned with water flows nice and easy, but again, I have this issue with colour shift where the hue of the paint has lightened. Whereas in comparison, when I push the brush through the Artisan that's been thinned with the thinner, it has a much nicer feel to it, a much more oily consistency. So in summary, it's absolutely fine to use water during your painting process with Artisan, so long as you account for the colour shift that will occur. Using thinner gives you a much nicer feel, feels much more like you're using a terps with a conventional oil colour, and just gives you that extra level of performance.